My name is Kevin Chao. I'm representing Stanford Biodesign, and I'm here as part of the Pediatric Medical Device Innovation Fellowship. The first objective is to find clinical unmet needs in the pediatric population and go through the Stanford Biodesign medical device innovation process and try to create some product opportunities and what we end up selecting to do, maybe commercialize a product. What we don't end up doing, maybe we set that out into sort of an open space for other people to work on. The second mission, as we've seen it, is to explore why the pediatric space and its subspecialties has been what some consider a failed market. Why do investors immediately reject any kind of proposal in that area? Underserved small markets, tough to do clinical trials, poor reimbursement, not necessarily the kinds of opportunities that your standard venture guy would salivate over. One of the first things I encountered during my pediatric rotation was that every single medication had to be calculated by weight. All of a sudden it wasn't a certain color pill that you could just give to an adult 80-kilogram person. You have to think a lot more about how, not just whether it's a baby, but is it a preemie or is it a full-term baby? Is it a large baby? Do they have other problems as well? So it was a very delicate kind of procedure. I remember in particular a neurosurgical operation in which there was no instrument that could fit in this small infant who had a brain tumor. And so you're basically on the back table bending an adult instrument and trying to make it so that it fit. And you wonder, why isn't there a tool that's fit for kids? And some of the insights that we've gathered are that for a large company to develop those kind of tools takes a lot of resources. Those technical challenges, in addition to the sort of clinical, regulatory, and reimbursement challenges, make it very hard in particular to innovate for kids. One of the first things we encounter in going into pediatrics is what every pediatrician will tell you, that a child is not a small adult. And there's a very distinct physiology that children have that's different from adults. Their anatomy is also very different. The idea that you could just take a device for adults and make it smaller and have it work is kind of a fallacy. The disease processes that strike kids on a broad scale, you can name hundreds that are completely not found in adults. And so yes, you do have to innovate in a very different way. The needs are going to be very different, and the way you go about solving those needs is going to be very different. What I think is realistically achievable during this year is to go through this needs-finding clinical immersion process, identify the dozens, hundreds of needs that are obviously there, and we focused on 2 different areas. And to be able to do some research behind those needs, do some diligence, and figure out how big those really are, and to use Kauffman's network to understand through a consortium of hospitals whether it's just a West Coast problem or a Midwest problem. Does it happen on the East Coast? Is it just a matter of practice and policy, practice paradigms? And understand them from a sort of a regulatory legislative standpoint. Hopefully we can connect to some people who have policy-making power, who can give us some insight into those areas. If we can create a list of needs that we can work on develop a few product opportunities, give the rest away, and share them with other people who might be interested in solving these problems or have the ability to solve those problems. I think one of the outputs of this is to have a case series of companies that have been successful or where they failed, and kind of start putting these into a chapter, a book, something like that, a pamphlet, so that people just starting to embark on this journey can look and, hey, look, these are the challenges that they faced, and our product, our idea falls within that spectrum, and we think we better be prepared to meet those challenges. Every day that I was on the ward, on call or whatever, I encountered some struggle. And when you're a busy resident, you just kind of tuck that away in your pocket and forget about it because you're just off to the next fire that you have to put out. People think neurosurgery and heart surgery are probably the 2 most advanced technologically specialties of all medicine, when in fact it's not true. A lot of what we do is very archaic and needs to be improved upon. But so few physicians have the background and the contacts to make a difference and make a change, they stop right at the complaint, and then that complaint dies with that shift, and nothing gets done about it. So my hope is that I can not only complain, I can listen to other people's complaints, pull it together. If I can't come up with a solution, I can sit down with a bunch of people, make some phone calls, and be like, hey, look, there's a real problem here, and we need to fix it. This whole innovation process doesn't end with brainstorming. Brainstorming is just the beginning. Brainstorming, you get some ideas. Sometimes you have to go back for a second, third, maybe 12th time and really find out, okay, well, we came up with a balloon idea last time. Well, let's talk about the balloon. What kind of shapes could it be? What ways of deploying? What are the challenges? You can brainstorm just about everything. Even like, okay, the nurse is going to have to prepare this thing on the back table, and her constraints are that she has one hand on something else and the other hand on the wire. How do you make that process of preparing this new device possible? So, you can brainstorm a whole bunch of things. Beyond brainstorming, you have to go back and do more validation, more diligence, really figure out if that's really the problem. What are the constraints? Talk to the consumer, the end user, all the people along the supply chain. So there's all these different considerations that go into the process of making sure the idea gets to becoming a product, to helping patients. And that's, I think, true for consumer products, for medical devices, for drugs, everything. When you talk to a lot of founders of companies, the original inventor of certain kinds of technology, especially medical devices, they'll tell you that the idea didn't come to them in the setting of a clinical setting, that it came to them while they were eating or making a salad or blowing a balloon up for their kid or something. And I think that's definitely true. It's not something that you could shut off. A lot of the industrial designers and a lot of the mechanical engineers, they would always be taking pictures of things they thought were interesting, whether they thought it was immediately applicable to their specific project. One of the cool things about how technology has evolved now is everybody has a camera phone, basically. So on my iPhone, I have a bank of what I call inspirations, and I save that to my computer. Every day I sync it, it dumps it into a folder, and I probably have about 900 photos now of just some really dumb things, and others are like pretty cool. It's like a gizmo, or like I remember taking a picture of the dry erase marker. And I took it apart. I was like, oh, so that's how they made the lines the way they did, or fastened the thing together. Like things that never really interested me, like were really mundane to me as a clinician before, became much more interesting. And it wasn't that I was actively looking for a solution to a problem, but that to keep an open mind and to really realize that there's a lot of different kinds of solutions, and you don't know which one is a solution. You just kind of keep compiling it and sorting it. The process of the discovery comes from, coming up with ideas that are completely unrelated to medicine while making salads. But the process of finding unmet needs also asks you to focus on not just what the surgeon is doing at that very moment, but maybe the problem is, look on the side table, the nurse is struggling to put the thing together on the back end because the lights in the operating field, there's no light on the back table, the nurse has 2 pairs of gloves on, it's really bloody, and she can't put the thing together. So sometimes you have to kind of shift your attention away from the action and find the problem completely in a different place. Most people think of problems as being, okay, the OR, there's a thing that's shaped this way, you need a thing that's shaped another way. That's not exactly the need. The need is to make this process more efficient, for example, or the need is somewhere not in the OR. And what we found that actually is a lot of clinical needs are found in the clinic, talking to patients in their post-operative visit or pre-operative visit, what's stressing them out. I think it's a kind of frame of mind that you have to carry into, and most people don't have it, and it really takes a lot of training and discipline. And I don't claim to be an expert by any means, but at least I've become preliminarily aware, so that hopefully I can get to the point where a lot of people are at, who are really in the creative, serially successful entrepreneurial side of the world.